Hello and welcome to my channel where we talk about tips and tricks for teaching elementary music. Okay, here's today's video. So today I want to talk to you about your student teaching experience. This video is directed towards people that are going into student teaching right now, and these are some things that you need to look for and do during your student teaching experience to get the most out of it. So first of all, let's talk about what student teaching actually is. Some colleges may call it an internship, and other colleges will still call it student teaching. In my area, the colleges still refer to it as your student teaching semester, and it is the final semester of your music education degree, and it takes the whole semester to get through. And somebody who is just being certified in like one area, like a 3rd through 5th grade teacher placement area, they would stay with the same teacher, cooperating teacher, for their entire placement. In music, we are certified to teach pre-K through 12th grade. So usually what happens is you will do half of your time in an elementary music placement and then the other half in either middle school or high school ensemble music setting. This can be done in either the fall or the spring. Most people do it in the spring because if you're on a regular graduation track, the majority of people that are in college will graduate in the spring semester, finishing up their final year. But some people have other things happen. Maybe they have to take a semester off. Maybe they had to take less classes on a given semester. And so it ends up being that their student teaching placement is in the fall. That's actually when my student teaching placement was. And the fall placement is actually kind of a good placement because you get to see how a teacher sets up the classroom, how they start with introductions to their students, how they establish those rules, consequences, and rewards and routines and procedures. You get to see that from the beginning. And that kind of really helps you to know what to do in the beginning of your actual teaching career. But a spring placement is also good because everything is established and you can kind of hit the ground running, and the teacher will have to explain to you, okay, well, this is how you would teach that to them in the beginning. This is how you tell them about rest position, let's say, for the first time with an instrument. But my students know this already, so they're just gonna kind of go with it. So it does help you to be able to move along a little bit more efficiently, whereas in the beginning of a school year, you are having to establish a lot of routines, and it can eat up a lot of time. Okay, so here are my tips for you. 1, be on time. I think that's self-explanatory. 2, dress appropriately. Your college will probably tell you, I think most of the ones in my area tell the student teachers that they want them to dress very professionally, that even if we have a jeans day or a casual day, whatever you might call it, in our school building, that they still want the teachers to show up dressed appropriately. Bottom line, your college will give you some parameters, and you can always ask the cooperating teacher if the school system has certain parameters as well, if you're curious. But basically in an elementary setting, you're probably okay to come in casual, like when I say casual, I mean like khaki type pants as opposed to like a suit pant, right? And even a polo shirt a lot of times is fine too. It can be as casual as that, or if you want to wear a dress or a suit every day, you could do that. There's really no wrong way as far as how dressy you want to be or not. I will tell you, especially when you're in elementary, that you probably don't want to go super dressy, because when you're working with children, kindergarten in particular, they're so low to the ground, right? And you might have to bend over a lot. You might have to sit down with them for something. You could get, I hope this doesn't happen to you in your student teaching experience, but you could get bodily fluids on you at some point when you're working with some of these younger children. So you might not want to be wearing your best of the best clothing when you're out in student teaching. Make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you have a comfortable pair of shoes. and just make sure you're within whatever the parameters are for your college and the parameters for the district that you're student teaching in as far as appropriateness of school wear. Turn in your assignments on time. If your teacher says that they want your lesson plans by a certain day and time, do it, okay? Any other assignments that your teacher, the cooperating teacher, when I'm saying your teacher in this video, I'm referring to your cooperating teacher. That's the person who is the teacher of record at the school that you are doing your student teaching at, that has opened up their classroom for you to come out and is showing you how to work with their students. That is your teacher during this time period. So whatever assignments that they have assigned to you, which mostly will entail lesson plans, it might also entail if they want you to do an assessment or write up an assessment so they can teach you how to make one. And they may say, have this ready by such and such a time, or pick out your songs by a certain time so I know what songs you're choosing so you can approve them or not approve them, and so that there's time for you to change those things out. So whatever they tell you as far as turning in things, make sure you're on time. And your college will probably also require you to turn in things like writing a lesson plan in a particular way, or reflections, or anything else. So just make sure you're on time with everything. It's really important to do that, because unlike college, where hopefully you've been turning in things on time, but if you turn it in late, it's really just between you and your professor, right? And your professor makes the decision to dock you or not dock you, and there's nothing else behind that assignment that needs to take place. When you're turning in lessons to your cooperating teacher needs to go through that lesson plan and make sure it's written in the way that the principal in her building or his building will want to see. They also need to make sure that the songs you chose are appropriate with lyrics and everything else for the grade level and just in general, and that you have your instrumentation written out and all of those other things. As far as what the students are going to play on their instruments, they need to see all those things in enough time to be able to assist you in changing them before you actually have to teach that lesson. So if your cooperating teacher says, I need to see your lesson plans by Friday at 5 o'clock, don't be like, why can't I have the weekend? Because there's a reason for that. The cooperating teacher needs to make sure that everything's okay, and they may need to say, hey, you need to, everything looks good, but can you change this one thing? You want to have time to do that so that you're not scrambling on Monday morning to change something. Plus, there might be a time that the cooperating teacher has to turn their lesson plans into their principal on a regular basis. In my school, our lesson plans are due at Friday at 5 p.m. So just keep all that in mind and be on time with things. Take notes. When you first come in to your student teaching position, you are going to be observing at least that first day, maybe even the second day. It's all going to depend on your cooperating teacher, how quickly they want to put classes into your actual teaching process. So take notes, ask lots of questions. This kind of goes in with taking notes. So you want to take the notes so that you know what it is that you're like, why did she do that a certain way, right? Why did the students not understand that concept as a first grader? These are the things along the way that you're taking notes with, and you're deciding, what do I need to ask questions about? Okay, so if you never wrote anything down and you get to the time where the teacher actually has time and can listen to your questions and answer your questions, you're not going to know what to ask. And you want to ask questions your entire time of student teaching, okay? Because college has prepared you with the music knowledge, but they have not really truly prepared you with that interaction with young children and being able to teach them where they are, what they need to know that will make them successful in music education. So you need to ask as many questions as you feel that you need, and don't be afraid to ask them. That's what the cooperating teacher is there for. Reflections. After you have taught your first lesson, your cooperating teacher will probably give you feedback right away, okay? And that's another time to ask questions and listen to what the cooperating teacher is saying and reflect and think about how you could do this again the same way because it worked really well, how you could change this, all of that. You might even want to write down those reflections. And when I say write down, you know you could be typing this in a Google Doc or something else as well. It doesn't have to be pen and paper. But the whole point is if you don't put this information down somewhere that you can come back to it, and then you get to the second lesson, and let's say your cooperating teacher on the first lesson gave you a note about make sure you're making eye contact with the students. And the second lesson, you don't make any eye contact, and the cooperating teacher gives you that note again, hey, don't forget to make eye contact with the students. And you're like, oh, I forgot because you never wrote it down and you didn't think through it and reflect through it. How can I be doing this more efficiently, scanning the room more and making eye contact with my students? So make sure you take notes and write reflections down and ask those questions. Don't try to do your own thing in your student teaching experience. What I mean by that is, this is not your classroom. It is somebody else's classroom. They have set it up physically in a way that they like it, that they feel works for them. They have routines and procedures that are in place. They have rules, consequences, and rewards that are in place. And you need to follow their lead on that. Don't make up your own rules, your own consequences. If your teacher never gives out candy in their classroom, there's a reason that they chose never to give out candy. Don't all of a sudden tell the students, if you do XYZ correctly, I'll bring you candy next week. That's not going to work because your cooperating teacher has to be there all year. And if you all of a sudden are giving out candy for 4 or 5 weeks while you're there teaching everybody, then all of a sudden, at the end of that, your cooperating teacher is going to get pestered a lot from her students about having to give them candy when they've decided that this is not going to be part of their reward situation, okay? So don't make up your own things. Stick with your cooperating teacher's rules, consequences, rewards, and routines and procedures. They are there for a reason. They are thought out. And in addition to that, if you just stick with it, you don't have to think about those things. They're already in place. It's already there for you to use. Another thing that you should stick with by following your cooperating teacher's lead is the lesson plan that they use. So the school, the college that you were at will probably give you a lesson plan format that they want you to use, and they want you to submit so many lesson plans to them. Well, you're going to have to do that because that's what your college requires. But when it comes to your cooperating teacher, you have to use their lesson plan format because your cooperating teacher, depending on the school, probably has to turn in lesson plans to their principal. I do. And they need to look the same format that the cooperating teacher uses. Okay? So make sure you definitely write it into that format for the cooperating teacher because they're going to be turning your plan in. If you're teaching all of second grade that next week, they're turning in your plan as their second grade lesson plan. Okay? They're not going to rewrite it. In addition to that, whatever the cooperating teacher's lesson structure is. So for example, my lesson structure is when they come in, I do steady beat, then they sing a known song, then they do rhythm patterns. Actually, we're getting ready to switch over to solfege because it's second semester coming up here in that place. And then they dance, then they sing a new song, and then we play instruments. And then we'll do any theory things that I want to do after that, like treble clef letters, for example. So whatever that structure is, that order of events that your cooperating teacher uses, go ahead and use that because the kids are used to that, and that way you don't have to rethink a new structure for yourself, okay? But if the cooperating teacher is okay with you switching around the order of events, which I tell my student teachers they can do that, that's fine. But whatever you do, try to be consistent with yourself. So if you decide you want to dance when they first come in the room, then do that every time they first come into the room, right? It just makes it easier for you to know what's coming next. Throughout your student teaching semester, start thinking about the things that you might want to implement in your class one day. So if you have discovered a really great routine that your cooperating teacher uses that you've maybe never thought of before, write it down, okay? I definitely want to use this, or make a note of it somewhere for yourself, because you don't want to get through your student teaching semester and get on the other side, a summer goes by or another spring semester goes by, whatever, 3-4 months go by, then you get a placement somewhere and you're trying to set up your classroom and you're like, what was that thing that cooperating teacher did that I really liked and I said I wanted to use it and I can't remember what it was. So make a note of it if it's something you really think that you want to use. The other reason you want to mark it down is there is going to be just too much information for you to remember, okay? You are going to learn so much during this student teaching process, all right? And by the time you leave elementary music and you're done with your portion there, you will feel like you have a really good handle on elementary music, okay? But then if that was your first placement and now you're going to a second placement, and let's say you're doing high school chorus, which is a totally different animal, you will get all of the information from them on top of that, and your elementary music placement is just going to fade away. And then when you go to do an elementary music job, if that is what you do, you're going to be scrambling to remember all those things, okay? So that's another reason why you wanted to mark it down. It's just too much information to remember just off the top of your head always. Don't be surprised when you're teaching and kids act like kids. They are going to, can I go to the bathroom? He's messing with me, getting out of their seat, running around the room, picking up the instrument and playing it when they're not supposed to be doing. They are gonna do those things, even when the cooperating teacher is sitting right in there. Because I'll tell you, they do those things with me and I have to constantly redirect them. In addition to that, I usually will sit in the room the majority of the time because technically we're not really supposed to leave the student teacher completely alone. Things are different from when I was a student teacher. When I was a student teacher, I got left alone a lot once I was up and running with all the classes because my cooperating teacher had the freedom to do that. Nowadays with legalities and other policies and everything like that, we're not really supposed to leave you alone. Definitely not like for an entire class period. But we do step out of the classroom from time to time to go run a copy, run to the bathroom, stop next door to tell that teacher something, or just stand outside the door and listen. And the reason we do that is because the kids are gonna act different when the cooperating teacher is outside the room. And you do need to experience that a little bit. But in addition to that, when I'm in the room, I make a point. If my student teacher, once they are up and running and they're teaching all my classes, I will sit at my desk and I have a double monitor system there, so it kind of blocks me like this. And I just tell the kids, if they're coming over and talk to me, I'm not your teacher right now. Go ask Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, because I'm not your teacher right now. And I do that on purpose where I'm doing computer work so that it takes my focus off of what the student teacher is doing. So it really helps me to detach from the class, and it helps them to feel like they are really running it themselves. And the children see that and they go with that and they're like, oh yeah, that's my teacher. And that's when my student teachers start being like, oh wow, I had 10 people ask for the bathroom. I didn't know how to handle that or whatever. And I'm always available for the student teacher if they need me because I'm right there. But it's that kind of situation where you're trying to let the student teacher have as much of it as they can without your input. It's okay to stop the lesson. So you've created this wonderful lesson and you are so excited to teach it. You picked out these great songs, you made this great choreography routine to one of them, and you've got this fun little instrument part that you created, and you've been practicing the singing song and you really like it, and you just can't wait to get in there and teach these kids. And for the most part, you should be able to go through that lesson pretty much for most of them, but things happen. A kid will throw up. I hope this doesn't happen at your school, but it could happen. A fight could break out. A child could have some sort of meltdown for some reason because there's so much stuff going on, social, emotional, wellness and everything with the past several years with lockdowns and masks, that these children are struggling sometimes with their emotions and how to handle them. So all of these things could be going on, and you have to stop the lesson. Don't be afraid to stop the lesson. But also, don't be afraid to stop the lesson if you notice that your class is just like, and you feel like there's not enough focus in the room. Don't be afraid to stop the lesson. It's okay to stop the lesson. It's okay to just turn the music off. It's okay to sit down for a moment. It's okay to stand there and just wait for the class to be quiet. It's okay to say be quiet. It is okay to stop the lesson, okay? And then once you feel you've got more of them back on board, then start the train again, because that's what the lesson is like. It's like a train, and it's okay to stop it. Teach as much as you can. Depending on your cooperating teacher, they have, if they've had student teachers for a while, they probably have a routine. Like I happen to have a routine of when I like to have my student teachers start teaching and how much I add to them along the way. And also, they could be a brand new cooperating teacher and not know exactly how much to give you as far as teaching. And so they might ask you how much you want to teach. Teach as much as you can, okay? Because the more you teach, the more you learn what it's like to teach these elementary kids. And you will learn from every one of those lessons. Okay, that song went well, but I think maybe I could do it a different way and it would go even better. Or, oh, I'm never doing that song again. Let me go find a different song now to replace it. I mean, these things still happen to me as a veteran teacher. So teach as much as you can, because that's how you're going to learn. Okay, that's all I have to say about your student teaching semester. I hope that you have a wonderful time learning from your cooperating teachers, and that you really experience what it's like to be an elementary music teacher, because it is super fun, rewarding, and challenging at times as well. And I hope that you will remember to subscribe. Have a wonderful day.